guys. Welcome back to the Milk and Manners podcast, where we explore parenthood one episode at a time. If this is your first time joining us, we're so glad to have you with us. And to our regular listeners, thank you for being part of our community. I'm your host, Dee.
And I'm your host, Nhi. Today, we're delving into a topic that's often whispered about, but rarely discussed openly: sex after birth. It's a subject full of challenges, emotions, and plenty of questions, and we're here to explore it all with you. We know that the postpartum period can be a whirlwind of emotions and adjustment. I know that's what it was like for me and for you, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Your body is healing, your relationship dynamics might be shifting, and the demands of a newborn are relentless. Amidst all this, the question of when and how to reconnect with your partner intimately can feel daunting.
And I don't know about you, Nhi, but sex was the last thing on my mind after giving birth.
Yes and no. It was the last thing on my mind in terms of, was I interested in doing it? But it wasn't the last thing on my mind in terms of, did I think about it? I did think about it because, as you said, we have those questions, and when am I going to feel like it again? And is it going to feel like it used to feel? Is it going to hurt? I don't know. Is my body going to be ready when I'm ready? So I would say yes and no. It was on my mind, but not in terms of wanting to do it, but more concerned about when I did want to do it, what it was going to be like, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
In terms of our experience with childbirth, so you had a natural labor and natural childbirth, no C-section for you, which I think was amazing. And if you are a regular listener and you've listened to Dee's birth stories, I think pretty amazing. Your body just knew what it was doing.
Mm-hmm.
What was the recovery like for you? And do you remember what the doctors were telling you in terms of how long to wait and recovery and all that?
Yeah, so mine was pretty by the book. I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. It was
So
fairly
good.
It was fairly by the book. I know it might not be like that for most people. They suggested to me obviously to wait until the postpartum checkup, which generally happens around 4 to 6 weeks. So yes, I had a natural birth, but that doesn't mean that I didn't have tears and stuff. So I still had damage. I think I actually don't know if anyone has labor without any sort of damage. I don't know. Maybe it's a thing. It didn't happen to me, but in terms of the recovery, it was fairly quick. The thing that I remember the most was around contraception and how much they spoke about it. And I just remember thinking, I'm not even thinking about having sex, so I'm not even thinking about contraception, but it was definitely something that was brought up pretty much every single checkup.
Yep.
But yes, so I waited the 6 weeks, had the postpartum checkup, they went through everything. And then, of course, it was the conversation about contraception, and because I was breastfeeding, there was that as well. And yeah, pretty much I got the all clear after 6 weeks physically, or whenever I had the actual appointment. I think it was 6 or 8 weeks. And in my mind, I literally just thought the only thing that I was thinking of was just get to the postpartum checkup, find out if I'm physically okay, and then worry about the next step. So for me, it was literally the last thing on my mind because I was just worrying about Aiden, worrying about getting through that, healing. And then I thought, let's get to that checkup and then see where that goes. Because if you get all excited or you start thinking about it and, oh, I'm sorry, you're not completely healed, or you've got to wait another 6 weeks or whatever it is, then it's, oh, okay. So yeah, that was my thought process, is get through that, deal with all the other stuff going on with having a newborn, like you said, the relentlessness of it. But I got the all clear and it was fine. I actually don't really remember when we had sex the first time. I don't remember any of that.
Come on, Calvin.
No, as in, like, I feel like it's such a blur. So I couldn't even tell you if it hurt the first time. I don't remember any of that. Whereas a lot of my girlfriends remember it quite vividly, and I'm like, I don't remember it at all. What about for you? Because you had a C-section, so it would have been slightly different.
Yeah, I remember it vividly, all of this. So I'm one of those girlfriends who, I can tell you every detail because I remember it. It was yesterday. But yeah, the C-section was unplanned, but it went really smoothly. My recovery for my first after Kenzo was really smooth. Everything just went back to normal. And I'm pretty sure I was also told to have the 6-week checkup and go from there. And I think I was physically okay then. We didn't have sex for the first time after Kenzo till I think maybe 10 or 12 weeks.
Mhm.
And that was because I think mentally, emotionally, I was a bit scarred still, I suppose, from the trauma of going through the C-section. And I was in induced labor for what felt like an eternity. Just, oh my God. So yeah, maybe 10, 12 weeks, I think. Around the 3-month mark is when we had sex again. And I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a bit painful. I don't know, it was weird. And it wasn't painful as, oh my God, you're killing me kind of thing. But it was, I suppose it was uncomfortableness in terms of just, I suppose, using things again. And I think my body had starting the healing process because honestly, sometimes I feel that C-section scar. It gets tingly. It's weird, right? Yeah, I think I'm not sure when that completely goes away. And I feel like it might just be ongoing. It's fully healed, but because I think it's so many nerve endings and stuff and they've sliced through so many layers, every now and again I'm like, oh, okay, I remember that C-section scars there. But I digress. In terms of the first time we had sex, it was a little bit uncomfortable. But then that uncomfortableness went away very quickly and we went back to what was a bit more normal. I think the thing for me in terms of why sex was on my mind, in terms of when we're going to do it and all that stuff, was because it's linked to my identity before having kids. We didn't have kids. We had sex often and I really enjoyed it. And you feel when you have your first child, you feel you lose your identity so quickly overnight. And I suppose everything about you before having your first child, this is a part of it, right? This is a major part of your relationship with your partner. And you feel that shift. Every night you go to bed, I'm dead to the world. I just need to close my eyes and go to sleep. There's no all that stuff that happened before for quite some time. So I think that's why it was on my mind. And you think about your needs. You have needs, of course, right? So how long until those needs kind of resurface? And then also you think about your partner's needs. And then as a relationship, what was normal before is not normal anymore. So how does that look for us in the future? How does it look for us right now? How does it look for us in the future? And then obviously all the other stuff in terms of being utterly exhausted physically, emotionally drained. Your nipples are, if you've listened to our breastfeeding episode, my nipples felt like they were going to fall off. Did not feel sexy anymore, right? You feel frumpy. I'm living in one of my robes. And there are days when you haven't showered. And there's just so many things that have become more important than sex in that first period that it's totally normal if you don't feel like doing it. Honestly, I expect that you don't. If girlfriends came to us and were, oh my God, it's been, I don't know, 4 months and I still haven't had sex. Yeah, totally cool. Don't stress about it. You know what I mean? And I think it's one of those things where we often put pressure on ourselves too because we feel maybe expected or whatever it is. But I really want to stress that when it comes to sex after giving birth, first, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever number child, it is up to you in terms of how you're healing, how you're feeling about it. Do you want it? Do you need it? I think it really comes down to that. And I remember, I think it was another podcast I've heard or read in the past, there's been partners where they felt pressure to have sex. And I would tell your partner to buzz off because honestly, yes, it is about them too, but it is mostly about you. Because if you are not ready, then you are not ready in whatever level, whatever way. Forget about it. Mm-hmm.
I agree. Yes, it is, to your point, it is about them as well because you are in this relationship together. I think for them and for you as well, it's a little bit of that change in the routine. So to your point about pre-baby Nhi and Mad or pre-baby Diana and Calvin, you had a certain routine and you would do certain things because you didn't have any other responsibilities, or maybe you had other responsibilities, but nothing as big as this, nothing that threw your whole life and your routine and your identity and everything on its head. And if you're used to, maybe you have a routine that you have sex every Friday night, Saturday night, Tuesday night, whatever it is for you, however many times a week, however many times a month, whatever your schedule is, if you have one, and then that gets thrown out because you've just had a baby, you're tired, your libido's gone, you said you feel frumpy because your nipples are hurting and you've got scars and you've got the excess skin and you just everything. There's so much going on at that time that even if you get the all clear physically, I think people, and one of the things that I didn't know that was such an eye opener after having kids is the actual healing process. I think I've said it before, but you put so much focus on you're pregnant and now you've got to eat certain foods and you've got to try and stay healthy. And it's all, the finish line in my mind was giving birth. That was the finish line for whatever stupid reason. That for me was a finish line. But then after I gave birth and they're like, oh, now your uterus has to shrink back to its old size and the pain involved with that, and then learning how to breastfeed and all the other factors that play into for the next 18 odd years. It's just those things I never thought about. Didn't even consider them. Nobody tells you about them. Nobody tells you that breastfeeding isn't going to come naturally. Nobody told me. Nobody told me that your uterus has to shrink back to its normal size. I should have realized, but you just, I don't know, you just don't. It's just stuff that you don't think about. You don't know what you don't know. And you have to go through that process of healing physically. But then the unseen part of it is that emotional side where you are dealing with the loss of your old identity, where you are dealing with the stress, the anxiety, the sleepless nights, the fear of getting pregnant again if you didn't have the nicest labor. That, I think, was on my mind a lot. I didn't want to get pregnant again, and because the doctors were so persistent in always talking about contraception, especially with breastfeeding, I'd have this one, you can't have this one, and all that stuff. They were things that were going on in my mind, and I was thinking, am I ever going to have sex again? Because I didn't want to get pregnant again. There was just so many things that you have to think about and consider. And so the emotional side, although you might get the all clear after 4 or 6 weeks physically, the emotional side I feel takes a lot longer to get across. And that's the part that your partner might not see. So they might come to you after have your postpartum check and go, how'd you go? Are you all clear? And you say, yes, and sweet, let's get on it. And you're, yeah, I'm all clear physically, but I'm not ready emotionally. I'm not ready mentally. And that's probably where you have to have those conversations and really explain what's going on, because they don't understand, because they haven't been through it. So they don't understand. They're just very logical, right? You've been given the tick of approval, let's go. So just bear that in mind. So when we say you have to make that decision, it is you that has to make that decision. It's your body, it's your mental state, and you are the only one that knows where you're at. The doctor, like I said, can tell you physically where you're at, but you need to know mentally and emotionally where you're at in this journey. Are you scared of getting pregnant again? Are you scared it's going to hurt? Whatever it might be. I said I don't remember if it hurt the first time. I don't remember it being uncomfortable, but I don't know. I think I was just really tired, and at the time, whatever, maybe I got through it. But it's not uncommon for it to be uncomfortable, and it's not uncommon for it to hurt as well. So just bear that in mind, that it's nothing that you're doing wrong, but if you're not ready, you're not ready, and it's your body. So
yeah, I think take it easy would be my advice. Go easy with getting back into it. I think just treat your body kindly. I think in terms of what you mentioned with having that conversation with your partner afterwards, absolutely. But I think in hindsight, if you can have that conversation beforehand too, we have a list of things you need to talk to your partner about before you have kids. Really, we should probably have an episode on that. But this is a big one because this impacts them a lot too, and their emotional state and how they feel in terms of being wanted. That's really important too, and for you as well. So I think have a conversation with your partner before you have kids in terms of maybe let's roll with it. Let's see how we go. Sex is important to me. It's important to our relationship. But whilst I'm healing emotionally, physically, I'm going to need time. I'm going to need time. And I'll keep you posted. We can talk about it in terms of how I'm feeling so that it's not you sitting in the dark thinking, oh my God, I really would love to make love tonight, but she's really not, I'm not sure. So I think have those conversations. You mentioned a few things, and I think there's a few things we need to unpack. So contraception massive. So when we think of sex after giving birth, contraception definitely is a major factor. And you're right. In Australia, in Melbourne anyways, my experience was the same. My doctor, who I've known since I was 16, she's been my doctor. She knows everything about my medical history, basically, all my sexual history, everything. And I just remember how much she harped on about contraception. So important. And myth busting here, but some people think you can't get pregnant when you're breastfeeding. You absolutely can.
Mm-hmm.
So please keep that in mind, unless you do want another one, which you and I did not. Contraception was super important. And I had the Implanon in my arm, and it's something that I've had numerous times before. I love it. It's worked really well for me. So it was absolutely no-brainer for me just to have that in, because then I forget I can't take the pill. I forget about it. And oh God, that would be an absolute disaster. But so for me, I had the Implanon inserted straight away. That meeting, she was like, let's do this. Yep, great, do it. And yeah, we didn't have to think about it anymore. What did you go on the pill, did you say?
I don't remember. I honestly don't remember.
Okay.
All I remember,
this raises some questions. No,
all I remember is they were telling me which ones I can and can't have because I was breastfeeding. I know I definitely didn't do the Implanon because that didn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
I must have gone on the pill. Anyway, I literally don't remember.
Yeah. And then the other thing was, I suppose, something that you and your partner might think, especially if you start getting back into it and you have sex and maybe it's slightly uncomfortable or whatever, you might think, oh my God, when will it get back to normal or what it was before kids? Or how will this be changed forever? And my answer is, it's probably going to change forever. So if you expect that your love life, your sex routine, whatever, how often and how and all that stuff is going to be exactly the same with what it was before you had kids, I'm going to burst your bubble and tell you mostly it's not. And if it does, it's going to take time. It's going to take more time than you think. It's probably going to take years, honestly, for it to get back to what it was. And I don't know, you got to think about what it was before. Maybe you had sex once a week. Maybe you had sex 4 times a week. Who knows? But it's going to take a lot of time and it might not ever get back to what it was. And that doesn't mean that's a bad thing. It just means it's going to be different. Do you feel that you and Calvin went back to what it was before?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yep.
You put aside being tired. You also have to consider that there are kids in the house. So you can't have sex whenever it suits you. You can't make the same noises. It's not going to be the same. Probably until the kids move out. And then you probably have no libido by then because they'll move out when they're 45. But yes, no, it does change, and that, to your point, it doesn't mean that it's bad. It just means sometimes that it just needs to be a little bit more pre-planned, or you go away more, or there's just other ways that you have to work around it. Whereas before you might have been a little bit more carefree. It's not going to be that because you do have kids around.
You're right. Yeah. So the spontaneity of it, that element is pretty much gone for some time. Maybe you're watching TV and it's probably going to be Bluey or something, and you look over at your partner and you're like, let's go for it. Yeah, nah, your kids are there as well on the couch, I'm sure. So it's just not
You're not watching Bluey, just the two of you?
Yeah.
Or are you?
Hey, great show. But yeah, so that element of it's definitely gone. And it does, you'll hear people saying this, but it does feel you're scheduling time. And then it might become maybe whatever day is the day, the night that you do it, or whatever it is. And I suppose it's just because you have kids and there's so many other things you're juggling in terms of pick up, drop off, they've got stuff on the weekend, you're exhausted at nighttime, all that stuff. And then I suppose the focus has to shift a little bit in terms of when you do it, trying to make it feel still special. There are going to be days where it's, I don't know, I want to say there are 5 steps and we do it and then wham, bam, thank you. See you later. Good night. But I suppose in terms of just, Matt and I try to do this in regards to have date nights. We have nights where we just sit there and we just talk about whatever. And that's, for me, that can be quite a turn on, right? Because the more emotionally connected I am to you, that helps for me anyways, right? So we do date nights like that where we just talk about stuff. And then we have maybe movie date nights, or we have my sister babysit and then we might have an Airbnb away for the night, that kind of stuff. So we've been really trying to do that stuff this year. And so Kenzo is 6, right? So in our 6th year after having that first child, that's where we're at right now. And I would say that our sex life is not what it was before as well. Absolutely not. But I'm happy with it. I'm still getting what I need and he's still getting what he needs. We just have to be really open and honest about it because, yeah, the kids are such a big factor. It's just that's the reality. That is the reality. So, yeah, there are nights where he'll in the morning he messages me like, what about tonight? And I'm like, let's book it in, babe. Book it in, you know? And then sometimes it doesn't happen because I'm, you know what, I'm exhausted.
Yeah. Yeah,
See
even
you
if
later.
it's booked in, you're not sorry.
Yeah, so we try to make it a bit of a game or something. But yeah.
There's definitely pros and cons when you know that your time is limited, or you know that, let's say the kids are at in-laws or your parents' house or wherever they are, your sister's house. You know that it is sometimes a little bit more exciting because you're on the clock and it's okay, we've got this time now and let's make the most of it. Whereas before you might have taken it for granted because you just had all the time in the world. So there's pros and cons. It's just a matter of evolving with what's happening in your life at that point in time. So, of course, when the kids get older and they go to sleepovers or not go to sleepovers or wherever they go to camp, or when they're older and you have more time, or you're just going to be in a different place. And I don't want anyone to get scared by what we're saying and think that their whole life is going to be turned upside down. Yes, it gets turned upside down, but it slowly evolves into something else. So just be mindful that it's not, yes, okay, for that first period while you're healing and stuff, there's probably going to be no sex and that's fine. But after that, it's going to slowly evolve into something different. And when we're talking about, of course, there's kids in the house, so you're not going to be doing it everywhere and whatnot. When they're little and they're babies and they nap all the time, maybe you are. But then as they get older and they can come out of their own bed, and now that our kids are 6, of course, they can hear and they know what's going on. And so it does change with the age of your child and with your family dynamic and all of that. It's just a matter of rolling with the punches, doing the best that you can do, making sure that your needs are met, your partner's needs are met, and talking about it, and still doing things together as a couple, because it's not only just about sex. To your point, it is also about connection. It's about talking to them. How's their day? What's been going on? Do they feel loved in other ways? Because it isn't, yes, us as women, we always think guys just think about sex, but it's not that as well. They want to feel loved. They want to feel wanted. And sometimes it's a hug. Sometimes it's a conversation. Sometimes it's a nice gesture, depending on what their love language is. It isn't always about sex. So don't feel that's the biggest thing keeping you and your partner together, because it's not. You've just had a child together, for heaven's sake. So there's a lot going on in both your lives. And yes, sex is important, but that connection, I think, is up there, because most of the time sex is just sex, but it's, I'm going to sound really corny, but it's making love when you actually have a connection with your partner.
Totally. We call it making love all the time.
Oh, there you go. So
I know that's so lame. Is it lame? I don't know. It doesn't matter. We call it making love.
Doesn't matter. Correct.
That's like making love tonight. I'm like, yeah, sure. Hey, the other thing.
It's all right, making love, then we're having sex tonight, because it sounds a chore when it's, are we having sex?
Yeah. The other thing that comes to mind is, doesn't matter what anyone else is doing.
Correct.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter how often you're having sex. I'm having sex. Our friends are having sex. Doesn't matter at all. I think it's great to talk to your friends about it. You have a mother's group and you develop some really great friendships. There's stuff in your head that you have questions about, and you might want to validate how you're feeling, that kind of stuff, which we do. And doesn't matter what anyone else is doing in that group. I think take it on in terms of, oh, okay, other people aren't having sex yet, I am, or we aren't, and everyone else is. Okay, cool, great. Keep that stuff in mind, but it doesn't matter what they're doing, because at the end of the day, as we said so many times already, but it's what you want to do. Are you ready for it? Do you want it? Do you need it? All that stuff. So I don't know. Did you have that experience? I don't remember. I think actually I have had a few conversations with some friends about this, and I've been on both sides of it. Whereas, yeah, I've been the one who totally have had sex way earlier than other people, and then there's been other friends I've spoken to. Oh shit, God, you guys have been getting it on quite a lot or whatever. So there's always other people who are doing it differently to you. So don't take that. Don't let that impact you in terms of if you're ready.
It's good to know, though, just for a bit of a sense check, where is everyone at? And not that it's a competition or anything like that. If you are and other people aren't, the other, or vice versa. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. It's just good to talk through your feelings. And if you're not, maybe you can have that conversation with your girlfriends and say, look, this is how I'm feeling, and this is why we're not having sex. And just to vent a little bit, I guess, as well, and just get it off your chest if there is anything there, or if you're worried about getting pregnant again. If you had a bad experience and you're worried about getting pregnant, and you say to your friends, I'm not having sex because I don't want to get pregnant again and go through that again, then maybe they can talk about their contraception options with you and their experiences. Did their partner go and get the snip? There's different things that you can talk about. So it's always good to just get that sense check, but don't ever feel you're not with the crowd if you're doing something different to your friends, or mother's group, or siblings, or whoever, or what your parents did, or because it's not one size fits all. It's very individual.
Yep, absolutely. If there's one thing in life, or if I had a list of things in life that were not a competition, this would be absolutely on that list. There are other things, sure, I'm competitive,
You are
whatever,
very
but this is not on that list. Absolutely not. Okay, so I think the last thing for this topic, and I think this is a good one, if your partner has just given birth and you would love to make love, and you know your partner is physically okay, but they are not ready yet, how can they help speed up that journey? So some things that come to mind, there are things that are not going to help and things that will help, right? Things that are not going to help, let's list them out really quickly, because I can give you so many things. Do not pressure me. Do not ask me about it constantly. Let's not even mention it. Don't talk about how other people are doing it. I don't care about how often other people are doing it. I don't care about, you don't need to talk to me about how horny you are or how your needs are. I have needs too. It's okay. We don't need to talk about it. I think, what else is not going to help? Not pulling your weight, I think, with the baby at home. If your partner is, so if me, let's say in this situation, I feel I'm literally doing everything, I'm going to be pissed off with you. Matthew knows this. And therefore, that does not equate to us making love. Just does not, right? So do you have anything to add in terms of things that will not help speed up that process?
I think you covered it pretty well. I think in general, it's just nagging about it that does not help. And that doesn't help even before you had kids. Nagging about sex, or, to your point, saying that so-and-so has sex twice a week, 3 times a week. That stuff is not sexy. It doesn't help. And it definitely doesn't help if you're not helping your partner so they can be well rested. They can feel a little bit themselves. They can start feeling a little bit sexy. If those things aren't done, then she's not going to be into it. So you nailed it.
And then, thanks. And then things that are going to help just maybe speed up the process a little bit. And there's no guarantees here. But I'm just going to say, from my personal experience, if Matthew does ABC, sure, maybe that's a bit more going to happen. I think the biggest thing for me is feeling I don't need to manage and look after everything. I think it is so sexy to have a partner who really pulls their weight in terms of everything to do with the house and the kids. I think that is so sexy. And it doesn't have to be 50-50. It could be however you split it, that works for your partnership. But if I come home Just going to throw a scenario out there. Matthew, if you're listening, he already knows about it anyways. But if I come home, house is clean, and you've thought about what's happening for dinner, and that what I need in terms of, hey, tomorrow night, why don't you go out for dinner with yourself? Or why don't you go have some drinks with your friend Diana? Sure. Yeah, that works. Okay. So for me, that's not the only scenario, but for me anyways, feeling I don't have to take care of you and that I am in some way being taken care of, and the kids are looked after. You've thought about what to pack in those bags. You've thought about, we have swimming tomorrow. That's already ready to go. Yes. So that's now. I think in the time when we have a newborn, apply those things to a newborn situation. So stay up too with me, or bottle feed our kids at night. Let me have some sleep. I don't know, just make me feel you're taking care of me and that you're thinking of me and you're putting me first. I think is really sexy. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And it's one of those things, it's the same as before, having kids as well. We've spoken about this before. So it's the mental load of everything that we are taking on. For me personally, if I have so much on my mind, that's when sex gets pushed down to the bottom of the list.
Absolutely.
As for most women. Whereas for men, it's not. It's the other way around. Sex is generally always more the important thing, the top of the list item, and then everything else comes second hand. It's just the nature of it. Men versus women. And I am completely generalizing here. So when your husband, your partner takes those things off you and you don't have to think about them and you can trust that they're done, that then releases and leaves space for you to think about the other things. Because, okay, I need to get up at 2 a.m. to breastfeed. I need to then get up an hour later and change the diaper. You've got all these things in your mind that you need to do. If those things are done and you're well rested and you're fed and you feel a little bit more like yourself. So again, we're talking about expediting that process a little bit. If you're starting to feel more like yourself, guess what? Your libido is going to come back. Guess what? You're going to want to then start. Your mind is empty of all those processes that you have to go through.
Yeah. And there's more space for it, which is that's a really good analogy.
There's more room where you can, now I'm feeling good. I went for a walk and I've had a good breakfast and hello, how you doing? Kind of thing. So that's how I see it. And that's how I feel, that I think men, partners generally don't realize that side of it. They just think, kids are in bed, why aren't we having sex? It's because her mind hasn't stopped. Her mind is thinking that she has to get up in 2 hours and breastfeed. Her mind is thinking that she's then got to, all the things that she has to do, laundry in the morning, and just, you don't realize how much stuff goes on in our brain. So if you can actually take 50% of it, it will give us the space to think about the funner things, because we don't want to be sitting there looking after you and the kids. That's not, that shouldn't be our job, our sole job. We are also people, we have needs. Just bear that in mind.
And we want to have fun too. Correct. It's not like we don't.
Yes.
And really big caveat. All over this stuff we've just said in terms of how do we expedite, how do we help speed this up, do not expect it. Do not do any of this stuff expecting you're going to get laid. Because I'm sorry, that is number one on my list of things to do to not get laid. Things to do to make me not want to make love. Is expecting it. That is massive. There needs to be no agenda. The only reason why you want to do all this stuff is because you love me and you want to support me, and we're a team, and you love your kids and you want to help you support your kids. That's it. Right? So just do not ask. After you've cleaned the house and you've packed whatever bags and lunches, whatever it is, when she walks into the room at night, bed, do not be like, hey, house is clean, let's do it. No, get out. I'll be sorry.
Because we know that you've just cleaned the house to get laid, and then it just becomes a turn off.
We are aware that you clean the house. You don't need to remind us or tell us. We're not going to thank you for it.
You live here too. You should be cleaning the house, not clean the house because you're going to get laid.
Totally.
And don't get upset if it doesn't happen, because if you are going in with that expectation, don't get upset if it doesn't. Don't get angry. Don't get disappointed if it doesn't, because if
Yep.
you don't have that expectation, then you won't get upset. So
Yep.
just don't have the expectation, because she's going through a lot. So just just be patient.
I read somewhere, and this is just the final last note to add to
Mm.
this, and I'm probably going to get the words wrong of how they described it,
Mm.
but in terms of sexual arousal, men is what you classify as spontaneous. They can get horny whenever.
Mhm.
Whenever. Women is more reciprocal.
Mhm.
We need other stuff,
Mhm.
usually, for us to feel in the mood, for us to want it, for us to need it. You know, for me anyways, my love language is what you do. What are we going to do? How do I show you I love you by what I'm doing for you, right? And so know that and do that for me. And in terms of the reciprocal factor of how women are generally programmed, it's in a response to something.
Mhm.
Either it's a response to this foreplay, or it's a response to you being so attentive to what I'm needing and how I'm feeling. It's in response to something. I'm not just going to be roll over and go, hey, let's go. Maybe, but not generally is the rule.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
All right. I think we've gotten everything off our chests. I certainly have. We really hope that today's discussion on sex after birth has offered you our insights and reassurances that you're not alone in navigating the complexity of this very sensitive topic. Remember, as we've always said, every journey is unique, and it's important to take things at your own pace. Open communication and understanding with your partner can make all the difference during this time of transition, and you're going to have many more transitions. So please speak to your partner about what's going on. We would love to hear your thoughts or experiences on today's topic. Feel free to connect with us on social media or drop us an email. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with your family and friends. Thank you for tuning in to Milk and Madness. This has been Dee and Nhi. Until next time, catch you later, friends.